He was the most loyal hitman of the Mafia boss.
We're going together, me and you.
Every gangster in the country respect him for his loyalty, but his son put him in a difficult position. When Mafia boss directed every criminal to kill his son for strange reason. So, on that day, he had to choose either his loyalty with Mafia or his abandoned son.
That's it.
Welcome back to Paramount Recaps. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. Our story kicks off with a gut-wrenching scene. Jimmy Conlon, our main guy, is bleeding out from a gunshot wound. As he lies there, his mind isn't flashing through his life like you'd expect. Instead, it's replaying every bad decision and regret he's ever had. Talk about a rough way to go, right? In the midst of this inner turmoil, his son Mike is nearby, dodging bullets like he's in an action movie, which, well, he kind of is. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's rewind the clock a bit. Just 16 hours earlier, Jimmy's in a far less dire situation. He's knocking back drinks at a bar. No gunshot wounds in sight. Meanwhile, in the bar's basement, Danny McGuire, the son of Jimmy's old boss, Sean, is up to no good. He's in the middle of a sketchy deal with some crooked cops. Jimmy, who's strapped for cash and dealing with a busted heater at home, approaches Danny to borrow $800. Danny agrees, but on one condition: Jimmy has to play Santa at his place because his usual guy bailed. Jimmy, not thrilled about it, reluctantly agrees. Now, let's shift our focus to Mike, Jimmy's son. Mike mentors kids at a local gym, filling in as a father figure for boys who don't have one. One of these kids is a young guy named Legs. Mike's got a sweet life at home with his wife Gabriella, their two daughters Caitlin and Lily, and another baby on the way. Gabriella is working on a photo collage for the new baby, but when Mike spots a picture of himself with Jimmy, he's not too happy about it. He ends up covering Jimmy's face with a picture of his daughter. Back to Danny, who's gearing up for a meeting with some Albanian guys and his father, Sean. They're trying to push a new heroin brand, but Sean, who's trying to leave his old ways behind, shuts down the idea. The Albanians aren't too happy about this and let Danny know they'll be back to collect the money they fronted him. Danny's clearly in over his head, and Sean is left wondering where things went so wrong with his son. Jimmy, now dressed up as Santa, arrives at Sean's house, but let's just say he's not your typical jolly Santa. He's had a few too many drinks, flirts with someone's wife, and even burns his hand on the fireplace, letting out a string of curses. Not exactly a festive scene. Sean finds Jimmy upstairs, trying to cool off from the holiday disaster. These two go way back, with Jimmy having been Sean's enforcer back in the day. They share a smoke and some quiet moments, but you can feel the tension brewing. The scene shifts again to a diner where Jimmy is having a coffee. In walks Detective John Harding and his partner, Taurus. Harding isn't fooled by Jimmy's calm demeanor. He knows all about Jimmy's shady past and how he's managed to avoid getting caught, thanks to some corrupt cops on Sean's payroll. Harding hands Jimmy his card, just in case he ever feels like confessing to his sins. Remember Mike? He's juggling multiple jobs, and right now, he's working as a limo driver, ferrying the Albanians to Danny's place. Outside, Mike spots his mentee, Legs, biking alone. Concerned, Mike sends him home and even offers him a ride. Inside Danny's house, things are about to get messy. Danny tries to hand over a bag full of fake money to the Albanians, but they're not amused. The head Albanian threatens Danny, only to end up dead, courtesy of a bullet from Danny's gun. And Danny doesn't stop there, he also shoots his partner. The wounded partner stumbles outside, but it's clear he's not going to make it. Hidden in the shadows, Legs captures the whole thing on video as Danny fires the fatal shot. Suddenly, Mike finds himself in the crosshairs. Danny smashes Mike's car window, drags him inside the house, but Mike isn't going down without a fight. In the chaos, Mike manages to escape, though he loses his wallet in the process. With danger hot on his trail, Mike races home and calls Gabriella, making sure she's safe at her brother Ricky's place with their girls. He tells her to stay put until he calls again. Just when Mike thinks he can catch his breath, there's a knock at his door. It's Jimmy, showing up at his son's house for the first time since his wife's funeral. While Jimmy steps outside for a smoke, Danny bursts into the house, gun in hand. Before Danny can pull the trigger, a shot rings out, hitting him in the neck. It's Jimmy who fired the shot. Mike tries to save Danny, but it's too late. Danny's gone. Jimmy takes off, leaving Mike to call 911, explaining that his dad shot Danny in self-defense. Jimmy then makes a call to Sean, confessing what he's just done. Sean, devastated, breaks the news to his wife, who responds with a slap before collapsing in grief. Meanwhile, the crooked cops from earlier show up at Mike's house. Recognizing Danny's body, they cuff Mike, but Jimmy's not done yet. He follows the cops, ramming their car and sending it crashing through a storefront. In the chaos, Jimmy frees Mike, who grabs one of the cop's guns. When the surviving cop raises his weapon, Mike is ready to fire, but Jimmy steps in, pulling the trigger himself. With civilians witnessing the whole thing, it's only a matter of time before the city launches a massive manhunt for both Mike and Jimmy. The next part of our story takes us into the subway. Jimmy gets into a fight with one of the bad guys in a subway restroom. They barely manage to jump on the train in time. As they catch their breath, Mike worries about his family, but Jimmy warns him that Sean is coming after both of them, and their families aren't safe either. The only way out of this mess is for them to stick together. The scene shifts to a tense moment between Jimmy and Sean. Jimmy tries to apologize for killing Sean's son, Danny, but Sean is furious and not willing to forgive. He's determined to find Mike and then make Jimmy pay for what he's done. Meanwhile, over at Ricky's house, Sean's men are watching, ready to strike. Mike arrives to warn his wife, Gabriella, and their daughters. They all hide in the bathroom while Ricky tries to distract the bad guys. After a tense standoff, the men leave without finding anyone, but Sean isn't giving up. He hires a hitman named Price to track down Mike and Jimmy. Mike and Jimmy head to the apartment of a kid named Legs, hoping he can help them. Mike talks to Legs' brothers, trying to get them to convince Legs to help out, but before they can get far, a nosy neighbor sees Mike and Jimmy and calls the police. Now the cops are after them too, and they need to come up with a plan fast. Just as they're about to make their move, the hitman Price arrives and takes out a cop right at their doorstep. Things get intense as Price, using night vision goggles, hunts them down in a dark stairwell. Mike and Jimmy start a fire to create a distraction, and in the chaos, Jimmy fights with Price, managing to burn his face and knock him down. Mike has a gun pointed at Price, but Jimmy tells him not to shoot. There's no time to waste. As sirens blare closer, Price starts shooting at the cops. Amid the confusion, with flames roaring behind them, Mike and Jimmy manage to escape, leaving the scene in a blaze of destruction. Next, they go to Jimmy's brother Eddie's house, but Eddie isn't happy to see them, especially when he learns that Jimmy killed Sean's son. Old memories resurface as Eddie reminds Jimmy of how he once killed their cousin, who was going to testify against Sean. This brings up a lot of old anger, and Eddie kicks them out, but not before making sure Mike's family is safe. Jimmy knows he can't keep running forever, so he decides to confront Sean. The final showdown is set at Sean's bar, a place full of memories from their past. Without hesitation, Jimmy walks in and starts taking out Sean's men, one by one, getting closer to the final confrontation with Sean. The big fight happens in a train yard, a grim and gritty place that matches the intensity of the moment. Bullets fly as Sean tries to escape, but Jimmy is focused on one thing: protecting his son, Mike. Jimmy takes aim and shoots Sean, hitting him in the side. Sean falls to the ground, unable to escape. Despite everything, Jimmy rushes to his side, holding him as he dies. It's a powerful and sad moment, showing the end of a friendship that was destroyed by crime and revenge. Meanwhile, the kid Legs makes a brave move. He takes the video he recorded of Danny's crime and gives it to Detective Harding. The video proves that Danny was the real bad guy, clearing Mike's name. After all the chaos, we see a peaceful scene at a lake house. Jimmy visits Mike and his family, meeting Gabriella and the girls for the first time. Little Lily, one of Mike's daughters, isn't too sure about her grandfather, but the family takes a moment to relax by the lake, feeding the ducks and enjoying the calm. But this peace doesn't last long. As Jimmy looks at a photo collage Gabriella made, he suddenly gets shot in the side. The hitman, Price, has found them, and he takes his shot. The gunshot shatters the calm, and Mike springs into action. Inside the house, Jimmy is struggling to stay alive. With all his strength, he loads a single bullet into his rifle. As Mike and Price fight in the woods, Jimmy takes careful aim. He fires, and the bullet hits Price in the head, saving Mike just in time. Mike rushes to his father's side, finding him taking his last breaths. Jimmy is holding a list of all the people he's killed, a grim reminder of his past. Detective Harding arrives and, understanding the situation, tells Mike that he's in the clear. In the end, we see Mike back at the gym, watching Legs spar with another kid. Legs wins the match, and Mike feels proud. Later, at home, Mike sees Gabriella and the girls making Christmas cookies. He's dressed up, likely for Jimmy's funeral, and he takes a moment to look at a photo of him and Jimmy by the lake, remembering his father who, despite all his mistakes, tried to protect his family until the very end.